The time is now 9:03 a.m., Mr. President, and you may call the meeting to order.
All right. Good morning, colleagues, staff, members of the public. It's 9 a.m. on March 11th, 2025, and we're calling this regular meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors to order. Let's start with having the clerk of the board provide information on how the public can participate in this meeting.
Great. Members of the public, the instructions to participate in today's meeting can be found on the published agenda. These instructions provide information on how to submit written comments and also how to participate via Zoom. Live interpretation of this entire meeting will be provided in Spanish. To access live interpretation services in Zoom, please click the interpretation globe and select the Spanish language on your laptop or smartphone or tablet. You may locate the three-dot menu, select interpretation, and then select the Spanish language, and then finally click Done. At this time, I will ask our interpreter, Paulina, to provide these instructions in Spanish.
Para acceder a los servicios de interpretación en Zoom, si se conecta a través de una computadora, haga clic en el icono de interpretación, es un globo terráqueo que aparece en la parte inferior de su pantalla, y seleccione el idioma español. Si está usando un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, ubique el menú de los 3 puntos. Seleccione interpretación, luego seleccione el idioma español y finalmente haga clic en finalizar. Gracias.
Great. Thank you for those instructions. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance, and you can all stand. Pledge allegiance. Through the clerk, can we now have the roll call, please? Our agenda reflects that Supervisor Corzo will be participating remotely in today's meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Supervisor Spear, Supervisor Corzo,
Here.
Supervisor Mueller,
Here.
Supervisor Gaucher,
Here.
and President Canepa.
I am here.
All present.
This brings us to the part of the meeting where it's the honoring the life of board member remarks. We'll now move to honoring the life of and board member remarks. Do any supervisors have any comments or things to share for honoring the life of?
President Canepa.
Yes. Supervisor Mueller.
Pacifica has lost one of its outstanding citizens. Tony Corton was a beloved principal at Ocean Source School in Pacifica. Together with his wife Kelly, owner of the Queen Bee Yarn Store, Tony and Kelly were part of the Pacific community, known and loved by many. He leaves a legacy of friends, family, and good memories, and will be missed and remembered in Pacifica for years to come.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor Mueller. Are there any additional comments from any other board members?
We have Supervisor Corzo.
Supervisor Corzo.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to honor the life of San Mateo community member Mark Kramer, who was killed in a hit-and-run crash while walking on Fashion Island Boulevard and South Norfolk Street last month. Mark was 56 years old and an active and beloved member of the San Mateo community. He grew up in San Mateo and was closely involved in the local music scene and also played in local bands in San Mateo. He was kind, positive, a good friend, highly dedicated to the people in his life. SMPD is still searching for the person that killed him, and so just kind of putting a call out that if anyone has information, please bring that to the San Mateo Police Department. Thank you.
Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, this brings us now to public comments. This is the portion of the agenda that is set aside for members of the public to comment on matters that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors, but that are not on the agenda for today's meeting, for matters that are listed on the consent agenda, and for matters that are set for closed session. With that, Madam Clerk, we'll give each speaker a minute, and we'll start here in the chambers, then we'll move to remote. So thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will go ahead and start with comments from chambers. I do have several speaker slips at this time. We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Jim Lawrence, followed by Deacon Lauren McCombs.
Good morning. Thank you again for Measure A, the second of two monumental steps you've taken towards strengthening the alignment between our county governance and the community it serves. On behalf of all the residents, please continue this important work with a sense of urgency, ensuring that we achieve full accountability and transparency between our Sheriff's Office leadership and the very individuals that they have sworn to protect and serve. Additionally, it is essential that we move any and all barriers that prevent our Sheriff Office deputies from dedicating 100% of their time and energy to the mission of safeguarding our community. Let's ensure that the trust between the Sheriff's Office leadership and the public is not just restored, but is solidified for the future with the appropriate guardrails. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Deacon Lauren McCombs, followed by Nancy Goodman.
Good morning good morning to all here present. My name is Deacon Lauren Patton McCombs, and I'm currently serving at Christ Episcopal Church, Portola Valley and Woodside, member of Peninsula Solidarity Cohort, as well as Coalition for a Safer San Mateo County. I've lived in San Carlos for over 34 years. On March 4th, the voters have spoken and have overwhelmingly approved Measure A. I am hopeful that the next steps that the board will take will be to put mechanisms in place to enhance communication, accountability, as well as justice within the Sheriff's Office. Our county is at an important crossroads to move forward in a positive way. I have faith in each and every one of you to do that work. Thank you very much for your time in serving our county.
Thank you. Next, we have Nancy Goodman, followed by Caroline Bracco.
Hi, good morning. I'm Nancy Goodman. I live in Redwood City, and I'm with Fix in San Mateo County. Thank you again for your leadership in setting up ICAC as really a historic first step towards civilian oversight. And thank you for putting Measure A on the ballot. Now the voters have spoken. We are looking forward to your continued support of ICAC as they come up with recommendations and their work plans. There's a number of areas with regard to the jail that are concerning. There's no assistant sheriff. The two jail captains are valiantly doing their jobs, but the department lacks executive leadership to support them. The captains, lieutenants, sergeants, deputies, correctional officers, and civilian staff deserve better. They deserve support from their bosses, not a toxic work environment. So thank you so much for all that you do, and we will move forward as a community with support.
Thank you. Next, we have Caroline Bracco, followed by John Medina.
Hello, my name is Caroline Bracco. I'm the current director of the San Mateo County Law Library, which has been providing San Mateo County with legal materials since 1916. I come to you today because I hear that the law library had been mentioned in discussion at the last board meeting, and I just wanted to remind the board that plans for the future location of the law library be part of the discussion in plans for the property that the law library currently occupies. Statutory requirement is that the law library be located in the county seat. This allows the law library to be accessible to those that may be involved with the courts and San Mateo County in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Medina.
Good morning. I'll try to do this quickly. My name's John Medina, business agent with Sprinkler Fitters Local 43, executive board with San Mateo Building Trades Council, and Measure K Oversight Committee member, District 2. I'd like to speak today about construction compliance during a personal investigation at Burlingame's Veterans and Affordable Housing Project at Eucalyptus Grove. The fire sprinkler contractor was awarded this project from San Diego. I went onto the project and found out the foreman of the project was an unlicensed sprinkler fitter. State Fire Marshal requires those who install fire sprinklers in commercial and residential buildings must have a completed state or federally approved 5-year apprenticeship program and pass a written examination for the certification. After we raised these concerns with the city, the county, and Central County Fire Department, the subcontractor last week now has certified installers. The issue is that the project was 75% completed and questionably installed by an unlicensed individual, shockingly without proper weld inspections. There's no assurance for the future residents of the county that contributed $5.7 million in Measure K funding that the life safety system piping had ever been installed correctly. The resolve is the fire sprinkler subcontractor should be required to remove all the pipe in question at their cost since they knowingly employed an unqualified, non-certified worker. Fire life safety should never be overlooked, especially on a project for veterans and those seeking housing who are facing homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Benevolent California 24/7, followed by Bill Newell.
I'll try to be real quick. Ms. Robbie says hello to Ms. Gauthier. Please consider this while juxtaposing your 5-year-old grandson, the future in San Mateo County. Someone individually or family member purchases $1 million home in EPA. Every 10 years, the investment appreciates about 100%, 10% per year. So in 2035, the value would be $2 million. He'd be a sophomore at either MA or Sacred Heart Prep. In 2045, the value would be at least $4 million. He would be a college graduate, 25 years young. What an incredible legacy for a grandson. I included Proverbs 13:22, but I won't read it. So I'm just going to say, please, 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 as James Brown would say, stop complaining about the cost of heaven. I thought Clayton and majestic Mount Diablo and Pleasant Hill and Walnut Creek, along with La Miranda, Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda, were the most beautiful places in the world. My white and Asian friends told me to go see the peninsula. I didn't believe them. I came over here, it's heaven on earth. I started at PlayStation. The place is incredible. And it's worth every penny. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Newell, followed by Jose Reyes.
Good morning, members of County Board. So great to see all of you today. First of all, I want to thank you all very much for the leadership that you've taken in setting up our independent advisory committee for oversight. And it's an historic first step that you're taking towards civilian oversight of the Sheriff's Office. The ICAC is focusing on community engagement, transparency, accountability, and improving communications between incarcerated people and their families. We look forward to your continued support for the ICAC and looking seriously at any recommendations that they will offer. You took an important step towards insight by responding to the complaints in the Sheriff's Office by commissioning an independent report by an ad hoc Inspector General, and by taking your oversight responsibility seriously, by taking the further step of putting Measure A on the ballot in response. Now the voters have supported your recommendations and approved Measure A. We look forward to your continuing to take action to support improvements for the workers in the Sheriff's Office and our community at large. Better working conditions will make for a safer community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Jose Reyes, followed by our last speaker slip from Michael Francois.
Ladies and gentlemen, board members.
Kindly speak into the mic, sir.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Ladies and gentlemen, board members, I thank you for everything that you're doing. I have a different opinion on the oversight. I was one of the victims that was in jail due to misconduct and everything. You guys know my story. We've spoke about it. Well, I finally filed. But what took many, many years to have somebody inform me about going to the county to file. I've never done this before. But oversight and accountability, I'm having a hard time with that. Because all these letters in here and all the complaints never made it past an organization of sergeants. Never, I was told, ungrievanceable. I wrote a letter to the second level appeals board, never made it past the sergeants. So I finally got this paper filed. I've not heard from nobody. I went to the oversight board, spoke there. So I'm hoping that a permanently disabled man that was hogtied and beat 3 months after he became permanently disabled, I'm hoping that the board will say, you know what, it's time to get an investigation going, to not just speak of accountability, to act on it, to get the attorney generals and get them in here and say, hey, you know what, we need to make room because there's a lot of awesome sergeants and deputies. And the only way to make it good for them is weed out the bad ones that beat on me. Because if we beat on somebody, we go to jail. These discs are for my attorneys. It took me 5 years to finally get one, but they don't open.
If we can wrap up, Jose.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys. I'm hoping that this can be resolved because you know what? The scariest feeling is to know that they beat me and got away with it. And then I still got to walk the streets with them. So,
Thank you, Jose.
thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you guys. And
Great.
We'll now go to our last speaker from Chambers is Michael Francois.
Hello, thank you, Council, for letting me speak. I just want to comment on something I saw that would bring interest to everybody in here. People who are listening, and you. I was reading in July 2022. There was this young man, 17 years old, in South Carolina, who committed suicide, and it was called They've called it sex extortion, because what happened? Screamers found him online. And what he did was what girls usually do, send naked pictures of himself out because he thought he was talking to a girl, so he sent naked pictures of himself to the girl. Screamers found out it, or found out about it, or hackers, and they threatened him with exposing what he did, and they kept threatening him until he blew his head off. And his father is a Republican senator back there, and in South Carolina, they've now had the governor sign in a law, a proclamation or a law of some type to stop this sex extortion from people. And girls do it all the time, and people don't realize that what's raising these kids now is what you have in front of you, the computers, and this. And his parents didn't know he was under that pressure. It's on the website. If you look up, it's called Gavin's Law in South Carolina. Look it up. It will tell you everything you want to know, and how the screamers, after this was over, what they said to him. They said, "You don't know how much your son." And I'll end it with this. Did I tell you your son begged for his life? That's what they sent the father of this. So that's why it became big in South Carolina. And Newsom supports AI, and every time they try to get something in on AI, Newsom always shuts it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to see you. One of the finest boxers in San Mateo County back in his day. Good to see you, Michael. With that, Sherry?
Yes, Mr. President, we can now go ahead and go to comments from Zoom. As a reminder, today's consent agenda begins at item 11 through the end of the agenda and including closed session at number 39. We did receive emailed comments which were shared with the board as well as put on our public site. So with that, we'll go to Zoom. We have 3 hands raised. I'll start with Martin Fox, followed by Raman Jamal. Martin, please unmute and begin.
Good morning, President Canapa, my fellow veteran, County Attorney Mr. Niblin, and Supervisors Spear, Corzo, Mueller, and Gauthier, and County Executive Mr. Callaghy. Thank all of you for your service to the county. Please make the county safer and healthier for persons living with serious mental illness and their families by supporting a vigorous implementation of the Governor's Care Court program. Make the reintroduction and passage of the Repeal the Liner and Peaches Short Act a top county state legislative priority. Make the immediate implementation of Senate Bill 43 a top county health department priority. And defunding of Disability Rights California and Law Foundation of Silicon Valley attorneys who defend the immoral Enron Peaches Short Act a top county federal legislative priority. California's residents need a Dorothea Dix-inspired, compassionate mental health treatment system. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Raman Jamal, followed by Becca Keeler. Raman, please unmute and begin.
Good morning, Supervisors. I'm a business owner in North Fair Oaks, and I was wondering about the delay of contracts with the Sheriff's Care-On program. I'm supposed to start a class for women's self-defense, but it's been delayed because of the Measure A controversy, which I do understand that part of this controversy had regarded like the building use for a daycare program, that we were told was being delayed by being pushed back on the agenda, so that could never be addressed by Mike Callaghan. So even though, it was acquired legally. But I understand that many programs may be delayed by the Measure A controversy. My question is then, with the passage of Measure A, can and will it be used retroactively? How can we how can we continue to complete these contracts that are in negotiation? And then I also wanted to thank Jose Reyes for speaking as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to our last speaker, Becca Keeler. Becca, please unmute and begin. Becca Keeler, thank you.
Yes, good morning, board. My name is Rebecca Keeler. I live in North Fair Oaks also, and I'm a co-founder of In Our Care San Mateo County and a member of the Coalition for a Safer San Mateo County. I want to thank the board again for your leadership in setting up the Independent Civilian Oversight Committee. I appreciate what ICAC is doing, and I trust that you will continue to support them. This is really of particular importance to me for three primary reasons. I have friends and family of color who have had encounters with law enforcement officers that have not been what they should be, and it's of real concern that there is no current oversight of the sheriff's office. And second reason is a recent 15-month period, San Mateo County had 5 people die in our jails, and that's unconscionable. I know people don't think or care about people in the jails, but I do care, and so should we all. These people are in the sheriff's care, and that's not care. Lastly, we continue to dehumanize people in our jail is by not allowing them to have mail. We're supposed to be rehabilitating them, not dehumanizing them. Again, I thank you for ICAC, and I ask you to address these issues I've brought up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, that concludes public comment.
Great, thank you very much. I want to thank the public speakers here in chambers as well as those remotely. We'll now take action to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda?
President Canepa, yes. I'd actually like to pull item 33.
Okay.
With that, I'd like to make a motion
Actually, excuse me, Mr. President, I'd like to pull item 20. I too was going to pull 33, so let's see that you did it. Are you pulling 33 for purposes of taking it off the agenda completely?
I was going to ask questions.
Yes, okay.
So, yeah.
So I'd like to pull item 20 off the agenda. We need to do further discussions with the FIA.
Okay, wonderful. So we have item 33 and item 20. Supervisor Gaucher, not Gautier, but Supervisor Gaucher, would you like to make the motion?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda minus, we're pulling off item number 33, and there's a request to remove item 20 from the agenda.
So just to be clear, item 33 will be moved to the regular agenda. Is that the
Yes.
is that the motion?
That's the intent by Ms. Gaucher.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Gaucher. We have a second by Supervisor Mueller. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Supervisor Spear? Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
And President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes, moving item 33 to the regular agenda for discussion and removing item 20 from the agenda entirely.
Great, thank you so much, members. Well, we have a pretty uplifting meeting today, and so we'll now move to presentations and awards. We have 5 of these items today. We'll start with item 1, which is a presentation honoring and commending Carolyn Blady upon her retirement as San Mateo County Sustainability Director. Before we get into this item, colleagues, I'd like County Executive Callaghan to kick us off.
Thank you, President Canepa and members of the board. It's really bittersweet to be here on this item today because Ms. Blady has done such an incredible job for us in San Mateo County as the leader of sustainability. We were lucky enough, as you might recall, to lure Ms. Blady away from Alameda County, where she had spent 17 years, during the most difficult time in the history of this county during the pandemic. And while Miss Blady was there, she made quite an impression on the folks in Alameda County. I believe she was inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame over in Alameda County, and served on many committees, and was really a leader in sustainability. She came here, as I mentioned, during the pandemic, and I've got to say, hit the ground running. There was no one in her office. Everyone was working remote. Can you imagine being a brand new department head coming in and not knowing any of your employees and not seeing any of your employees other than remote? But we talked, and she volunteered to come into the Emergency Operations Center as a division chief. And we thought that would be a great way to get to know people, but what a trial by fire. And she stepped up, and Ms. Blady did an incredible job during the pandemic, and even ran vaccination sites and testing sites for us, got them up and running, which was so critical. So we knew that we had a real winner amongst us. And then, of course, when she was able to get her team together and get operational, she really hit the ground running, and she was so collaborative with the other departments and working with them, advancing the county building and fleet electrification, waste reduction, foodware policy, and multi-agency hazard mitigation coordination, and really looking at sustainable procurement processes also along the way. She really was an absolute pleasure to work with. Always had a smile on her face when she was taking on tough projects, never shied away from any difficult situations, and I think really endeared herself to her staff also. I do want to note, in Ms. Blady's honor, we're going to give her, I believe the board's going to give her a resolution today. It's the first one of its kind. We changed the whole resolution to look much different, and we are honored to have the board present this to Carolyn today. So with that, all I can say is thank you to Ms. Blady. She's been an incredible department head, a incredible partner, and we're just so happy for her that she's going on to retirement and enjoying the fruits of her labor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, is there any comments from the board? Let me just share this before we get into comments. Your work has been really purpose-driven, and I want to share a quote that you've been motivated, I think, throughout your life. We found this, and it's Margaret Mead's words: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And so from the bottom of my heart, from our colleagues' hearts, we really just want to thank you. I mean, you've done so much, as Mike had said, around electrifying the fleet, looking at green infrastructure and the implementation of that, food composting. I mean, your work, as Mike had referenced, 17 years in Alameda County, and then here, I think you've left an indelible mark. I think the most important thing that you've left us is really what you've meant to your staff, and really giving people opportunities to grow, giving them and future generations, future leaders in the county the opportunity to thrive. And sometimes that goes overlooked, but I've talked to your peers and your colleagues. You're highly respected, someone who's extraordinarily collaborative, and your legacy with the first, and let me show this. This is the first resolution. Amazing. So now we're going to give the second to Louise, but this is just a testament to your work, and the work you've done with past colleagues, Supervisor Horsley and Supervisor Pine, has really, around resiliency, climate resiliency, has really been transformative. So thank you. Colleagues, I don't know if they're Supervisor Mueller?
Well, certainly I saw your work as a city council member, and it meant so much to the county to have the county step forward and lead on so many issues, and then in that process give the ability for cities to come on board. And that's a lasting impact. And all of your work that you've done really has lasting impact on generations. So very grateful for it.
Great. And I can't see Supervisor Corzo, but is Supervisor Corzo, would you like to say a couple words?
Sure, thank you, President Canepa. I just wanted to echo the thoughts of my fellow supervisors and thank Director Blady. Thank you for your service, for leading our county sustainability efforts, and for all of the time and thoughtfulness that you've put into this work and really bringing people in and helping every single one of our departments, of our other departments, know what their role is in our county sustainability efforts. So thank you. Thank you for your service.
Supervisor Spear.
Thank you, Mr. President. So my first impression of you was that you were a first-rate professional, and it's going to be my lasting impression of you. Thank you for your extraordinary service to our county. Thank you for uplifting sustainability to be something more than a catchphrase that really has, I think, left a great imprint for all of us.
Supervisor Gaucher.
Through the chair, I want to say thank you. I'm new to this role, but I was in East Palo Alto for 12 years. Want to just thank you for your leadership and your guidance and what you've done for the county and for the cities. So again, thank you. I know your staff will miss you. They're big shoes to fill, but sustainability is so important, and it's something that I want to continue to look at and make sure that the county stays on track for making a difference. So again, thank you.
Wonderful. Do we have any public comment within chambers, and do we have any public comment remotely? And I don't know if there's any staff members that want to say anything. Feel free to. No pressure. But do we have any public comments?
I'll go ahead and start checking on Zoom. I haven't seen any speaker cards in chambers, so if you're on Zoom, please go ahead and click raise hand for item 1, honoring Carolyn Blady. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Carolyn, would you like to say a couple words? Or as many as you want. It's your day.
I'll try to keep it under 30. Thank you so much for this recognition. Working at San Mateo County has really been a highlight of my career, and it's really been an honor to help build a sustainable future for our communities. And I want to say to each of the board members, I just really admire your leadership, your hard work, and just everything that you have done, the integrity you bring to really serve every resident in our community. I'm just always in awe when I watch the board meetings. Also wanted to appreciate Mike Callaghy and the CEO staff. You've been so committed to creating a really supportive culture for employees. Also making a strong commitment to delivering excellent customer service to every resident. And Mike, it's just been a joy working with you. You have such high integrity and you're so effective, and I will miss our monthly meetings. Also want to just thank all the department heads and the department staff who supported sustainability, as well as all the community partnerships. This is really a group effort. It's not something one individual can lead, or one individual can lead, but we're working together. And also just to recognize the talents of my management team and my awesome staff who really do the heavy lifting to bring the results to the communities. And yeah, just a big thanks and to my staff for serving communities to create a healthier place to live with clean air, clean water, and a brighter future. And with that, I'll close, and I will miss you all, but I will be back visiting at some point, and thanks for the recognition.
Great. Thank you for your service. With that, we're going to do a motion first. So can I have someone make a motion to approve this proclamation?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Sure. Supervisor Spear? Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So what we'll do is we'll take a picture with the board, and then maybe what we can do is invite your staff to come up thereafter to take a picture as well, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
is more center. Yeah. Have her. Perfect. Just squeeze in just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Perfect. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Mike, you're hired. Communications team. I'm sure you're. That looks good. You should go in there. No, I'm gonna take the photo. We'll do 2. Look at him first. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll now move to item 2, which is a presentation of a proclamation designating March 2025 as Agriculture Month. This item is sponsored by Supervisor Mueller.
Thank you, President Canepa. So, March is Agricultural Month in San Mateo County, and especially this year, in light of what's happening with tariffs taking place, it's actually even more poignant. Agriculture in San Mateo County is vital to our food security. It's vital to local public health, and it's an important piece of our local economy, and actually also contributes to preserving land use in the areas, in our coastal areas. We have, we're going to hear in a moment, agriculture has been struggling for some time in San Mateo County, but we're taking steps to bring it to a rebound, and we're going to continue to do that. And at this time, I'd like to go ahead and bring up Corin, our agricultural commissioner, who will provide us with a presentation. We're very lucky to have her, by the way.
All right, good morning, everybody. President Canepa and honorable supervisors, Mr. Mankia, Mr. Callaghy, and Mr. Niblin. I'm Corin Whittle, the agricultural commissioner and sealer here in San Mateo County. I wanted to thank you for proclaiming March 2025 as Agricultural Month to recognize the contributions of agriculturalists in San Mateo County. We're not often thought of as an agricultural county, but we're actually 40th out of 58 counties in California's $55 billion agricultural industry. In 2023, gross value of agricultural production in San Mateo County came to $99 million. Our top crops are nursery stock, that is potted plants and cut flowers, and also Brussels sprouts. But we produce everything from timber to honey. When we add in the fish catch and agricultural product processing and the multiplier effects, agricultural adds up to $222 million to the local economy. And this industry can only be supported by men and women who work rain or shine, drought or flood, and are essential to healthy, nutritious food to our tables. Our mission at the Agriculture Weights and Measures Department is to protect agricultural and environmental resources, ensure the safe use of pesticides, and provide consumer protection and ensure equity in the marketplace. We have 16 distinct agricultural programs with 36 dedicated staff. One of the ways we protect agricultural resources is through our pest prevention services, and this is to halt the introduction of invasive species. We inspect agricultural products at SFO, parcel carriers such as FedEx and UPS, and also wholesale and retail nurseries. We check to make sure that these products are free of pests and properly certified. For some of the most notorious pests, such as the Mediterranean fruit fly and glassy wing sharpshooter, we set up traps throughout the county on residential properties to find pests before they can become established. We also regulate the use of pesticides and enforce worker health and safety laws to ensure people working around pesticides are safe and the use is appropriate for the environmental conditions. Annually, we provide both growers and field workers with pesticide safety trainings. And ag programs that promote our local producers include our direct marketing programs, where we attest to the produce being grown by our local growers, and we also inspect the certified farmers market to ensure vendors are selling what they grow. And other county programs support agricultural protection and preservation programs, such as the As Fresh as It Gets program. This is an agricultural promotion campaign for local producers and fishermen. The Agricultural Ombudsman helps agricultural operators navigate permitting, and the Human Wildlife Interactions Advisor, housed at UC Cooperative Extension Office, helps local ranchers and land managers mitigate losses to wildlife. And so this is just a small sampling of some of the different ways that we help protect agriculture in San Mateo County. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Supervisor Spear?
Yes, when is Farm Day this year?
It's coming
March
up quick.
28th.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. Excellent.
Great. Supervisor Mueller?
So at this time, actually, we can go ahead and move to public comment.
Okay, if we can go to public comment.
Sure. I don't have any speaker slips from chambers, so we'll take public comment from Zoom. If you're on Zoom, please click raise hand for item 2 for Agriculture Month. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Supervisor Mueller, would you like to make a motion to approve this proclamation?
I'll go ahead and move.
Second.
Great. Motion by Mueller, second by Supervisor Gaucher.
I'll take the
Roll
roll
call, please.
Supervisor Spear? Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great.
President
Thank
Canepa, may we take a picture with Corin? Thank you. And our proclamations haven't changed, so they're not quite as impressive.
Get him just a little more.
All right. We'll now move to item 3, which is a presentation of a proclamation designating March 2025 as Women's History Month. This item is sponsored by Supervisor Spear and Supervisor Corzo. Supervisor Spear or Corzo, do you want to introduce this item?
Mr. President, I'd also like to ask that we include Supervisor Gaucher as a sponsor of this resolution.
Great.
No issue with that as long as Supervisor Gaucher is agreeable.
Okay, wonderful. It's appropriate to have 3 women of the board doing this, so thank you, Supervisor Spear, for that suggestion.
So does Supervisor Corzo want to lead off?
Sure. Thank you. So I'll start by saying that when I first joined the Board of Supervisors, I was the only woman on the dais at that time. And it was actually one of the motivations for me throwing my hat in the ring to be on the Board of Supervisors. I felt really strongly that representation by women on the board was something that our community deserved. And today, I'm really proud to sit alongside Supervisors Gaucher and Spear on a board where women make up the majority and where we more truly represent our county's demographics. And while 3 women have served on the Board of Supervisors in the past, this is, to my knowledge, the first time 3 elected women have served on the board at the same time. And I'd like to pay tribute to the powerful and worthy of much praise women who paved the way before us, starting with Rosalie Brown, the first woman on the Board of Supervisors in 1920. 1920 was also the same year that the 19th Amendment was ratified, granting women the right to vote. And Rosalie was followed by Jean Fassler, Supervisor Jackie Spear, Anna Eshu, Rose Jacobs Gibson, Adrienne Tissier, and my predecessor, Carol Broom. So I'm very grateful for the trailblazing women who have paved the way. And I also want to take a moment to thank the women on the Commission on the Status of Women who continue to make history and progress here in our county. And now I'll pass it to my co-sponsor, Supervisor Spear, to share her remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to give you a little history about women. Actually, Congress first passed the resolution to create Women's History Month 38 years ago in 1987. But it has a history that's very local because the tradition started in Santa Rosa 9 years earlier when they created a local education task force that organized Women's History Week. And they did it in conjunction with International Women's Day, which is on March 8th. But let me give you an example of the history of women that has gone unrecognized for so long. Between 1865 and 1900, there were 5,500 patents issued to women in the United States. Marie Curie actually was the first person to receive 2 Nobel Prizes. Grace Hopper is responsible for creating coding, actually creating the machine called the compiler, which turned language into code. And the word bug actually was coined by her because she was trying to get a moth out of that particular machine at the time. Beyond that, Mary Anderson had created the windshield wiper, and Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson is responsible for the research that created caller ID and call waiting. So that's just an example of what gets lost when we don't recognize women's history. Now, on a local level, in 1978 or 79, there was an attempt to create a commission on the status of women, and it went down in defeat. It was radical. It was not something that the county was going to embrace. So 2 years later, when I got elected to the Board of Supervisors, I started a campaign surreptitiously with groups of women, most of whom had worked on the campaigns of all the men that were on the Board of Supervisors. So we then brought an initiative to the board to create an advisory council on women because we didn't want to be too threatening. Shame on us for not going for the commission title at the beginning. But in any case, we did create the Advisory Council on Women. Its first hearing was on the feminization of poverty, and the rest, as we would say, is history, because now we do have a remarkable commission on the status of women. But enough of the happy talk. We are at a pivotal point of going back in time for women. And I just want to point out a piece that ran in the New York Times over the weekend that published a long list of words President Trump is seeking to purge from the federal government, and here is a sample of them. No longer would the word women be in national documents. Now, mind you, men can continue to be listed in national documents. The word women and underrepresented, female, feminism, sex, gender, race and ethnicity, equality, discrimination, diversity, injustice. This list is more than alarming. So I say to all of us as we continue to make history that it is indeed very important for us to speak out against an effort going on nationally to push women down, to demean them, to discourage laws that protect and promote them, and it's something that I, for one, will not tolerate. I'll yield now to my other co-sponsor.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Corzo and Spear, for bringing this resolution. As you can see from the graphic, I will be giving thanks to the women who have served on the Board of Supervisors who have broke this glass ceilings and whose leadership and path into politics have allowed me to be an elected official today. This will mark the 169th year that San Mateo County has been a county, and yet only 10 women to date have served on this board. I'm going to call out some names that you've already heard, but if you look at this, this document, though she's not pictured in the graphic, Rosalie Brown was the first woman to serve on the Board of Supervisors in 1920 when she was appointed by the governor when her husband died in office. An immigrant from France, Rosalie was born in 1872 and died in 1961. She was the mother of 9 children, very popular, and elected twice to the board. Jean Fassler served on the board from 1965 to 1976. She had previously been the mayor of Pacifica. My colleague Jackie Spear, of course, served on the board from 1980 to 1986 and is currently serving. Anna Eshu served from 1982 to 1992 and then they both went on to serve our county and Congress. Mary Griffin, who had been mayor of Millbrae, was a supervisor from 1987 to 2000. Rose Jacobs Gibson was first appointed to the board in 1999 and was subsequently elected 3 times, leaving office in 2012. She had previously served as the mayor of East Palo Alto. Adrienne Tissier served on the board from 2005 to 2016 and was previously mayor of Daly City. Carol Groom was on this board from 2010 to 2022, and she had previously served as the mayor of San Mateo. These women, along with my 2 colleagues, Noelia Corzo and Jackie Spear, are incredible role models, and for me and for the future generations. Their leadership is exemplary and meaningful, and I want to thank and tell them I appreciate them. And as you think about the words that my colleague Spears just said, DEI was not just for people of color. Women also benefited from that work. So I'm going to continue to say we need to push back, we need to reclaim the work and make sure that we continue to support those who need to be supported. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment?
I don't have any speaker slips from chambers, Mr. President, but we do have one hand raised in Zoom. Okay. Forensic Mama. Forensic Mama, please unmute and begin.
Hi there, board. Jackie, years ago, I knocked on your door in Palo Alto and called your office asking for help, but was turned away. Noelia, you've ignored me and done nothing to help me. Why do some women harm other women? My daughter deserves to have me in her life as her role model, but she has been deprived of that because of your district attorney, Steve Wagstaff, who protects violent men and puts protective women like me in jail. This county has proven to me that women have no rights. Men think they own us and can do what they want to us. I haven't seen any women in this county changing that. And that's not love. I need to see actions, not hearing empty words from this woman to all of you women. Give me my daughter back and prove that you actually care about us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more, one more hand raised for Anisha Weber. Anisha, please unmute and begin.
Good morning. I just wanted to send a big congratulations for designating this again as Women's History Month, and as a former commissioner on the Commission on the Status of Women, want to give a big a big group hug to the commissioners who are there, and also thank you to the Board of Supervisors for always supporting us and listening to us. And so wishing all of you a wonderful Women's History Month, and let us continue respecting, supporting, and uplifting women throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. No further speakers, Mr. President.
Great. Supervisor Spear, Corso, Gaucher, would any of you like to make the motion?
Also move.
Okay.
Second.
Second, okay. Moved by Supervisor Spear, seconded by Vice President Corso. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, and would we like to include in the motion for the co-sponsorship, including Supervisor Gaucher?
Yeah, why don't we do that? That's great.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll take the roll call. Supervisor Spear?
Aye.
Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great.
Sure. And I'm just going to direct this to staff. We just heard an emotional cry on Zoom, and I'm always wondering, how do we figure out what is going on? And I don't want to sit here and feel like I don't care. I would love to figure out what's going on, and if there's a way to be helpful to anybody who's in pain. So could we do some research and figure out what is going on?
Yes, Supervisor Gaucher, that's the short answer. We'll contact the DA's office and look into this.
Thank you so much. Next,
We have a presentation of the resolution.
oh, who has the resolution?
Well, it's right up front.
Okay,
before
you have it.
before I'm going to ask that the president of the Commission on Status of Women and all the members that have joined her, Susan Kokoris, come forward. Let me also just point out that they have just published Fund the Future. A durable and coordinated investment in childcare is important for our county. I think the document is persuasive. I hope to have one that will pile onto that, but I don't want that to be left on the shelf and not responded to by all of us. So hopefully in the near future we will do this. But let's go and congratulate all of them.
And we have Supervisor Corzo also in for the photo.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So we're going to do it from this angle.
Okay. Next item is item 4, which is the action to accept the annual report by the Commission on the Status of Women. This item is sponsored by Supervisor Corso. Supervisor Corso, did you want to introduce this item?
Thank you, President Canepa. Absolutely. It's been my honor to serve as the liaison to the Commission on the Status of Women. Their research, insights, and hard work have informed many key initiatives that have been brought before this board, including signing the Equal Pay Pledge and the Women and Children's Officer Position and Action Plan. I'm excited for them to share their 2024 annual report and all they're working on to improve the lives of women in this county. I'm committed to keeping their research and recommendations in mind as we continue to move forward with critical decisions today and in the future. And I just want to name how amazing this commission has been to work with and how welcoming this group of women is, how diverse the group has become, and how I think this commission is an amazing example of women leading the way and not being afraid to name what the issues are that they know women are facing, not just in our community, but in their daily lives, and bringing solutions forward to our board and recommendations. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Susan Kokoris, President of the Commission on the Status of Women, to share this report, and she'll be joined by Commissioners Lysandra Gutter and Susan Takalo. Welcome.
Well, good morning, supervisors. Good morning, County Executive Office. Good morning, County Attorney's Office. Wow, to Supervisors Spear, Corzo, and Gauchier, what an amazing introduction and providing history and context to today's proclamation. My name is Susan Kokoris. I am President of the Commission on Status of Women. This is actually my third time receiving this proclamation, but I want to say that this time I think it's extra special and particularly important. In prior years, we've all chatted about how the history of women's progress in this country has been anything but easy. There's a lot of hard work, followed by some success, followed by some setbacks, followed by some great perseverance, hard work, success, and again, more setbacks. And what we've concluded is it's a two-step forward, one-step back kind of process that always sort of inches its way very incrementally towards progress. And yet, today, women face unprecedented threats in terms of their financial well-being, in terms of their access to health care, in terms of their access to housing, and even in terms of their ability to express their opinions. So we want to begin this by acknowledging and thanking each and every one of you for standing up for San Mateo County residents, particularly the most vulnerable. And what we know is that when you protect and support the most vulnerable, you actually are protecting and supporting all of us. So it's with profound gratitude, and we say thank you for that. I'd like to now turn my attention towards a brief review of our accomplishments this past year and our intention to accomplish things in the near future. Just a quick review. What we are is an advisory committee. We're advisory to you, the Board of Supervisors. We study issues that matter to women. We educate the public, and we inform you about the nature of our findings. I love this particular graphic because in 2024, this is what we were all about. This represents the ladder to women's economic success. 2024 accomplishments include the Women's Hall of Fame. This is a signature event of ours that has been going on over 40 years. We also celebrated with you the resolution that you passed signing the Pay Equity Pledge, and you as a county have been working towards closing the equity gap, and we appreciate your accomplishments in that regard. We held our Rise Women's Leadership Conference. That was a gathering in which we surveyed the community and got input for our economic report that we presented to you in the fall. We celebrated with you Women's Equality Day in August. And finally, and most importantly, we presented in October Fund the Future, a call for durable and coordinated investment in childcare and women's economic health in San Mateo County. You embraced that report, and further, with Supervisor Corzo's help and Dave Pine's help, you passed a resolution establishing a full-time position to work on the action plan for women and children in San Mateo County. 2025 projects, we are already almost finished with finalizing our plans for 2025 and 2026. We are fully committed to supporting the action plan for women and children and organizing our committees around that work. We intend to expand our engagement with our community, particularly in light of the threats that women face, and we will be conducting learning and listening sessions all over the county in each one of the districts. We are very excited to share with you that we will be hosting a major Women's Equality Day event on Women's Equality Day itself, which is August 26th. We will be inviting all of you, and to that end, we'll be in touch with each of your offices and your staff to make sure this is on your calendar. And hopefully, we get several of you to make presentations on that event as well. We will open our nominations for 2026 Women's Hall of Fame, and we will continue to learn and collaborate with you, the county, and our community of partners, but we hope to expand the number of community partners that we will be working with. Finally, thank you. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for accepting our report. Thank you for establishing this full-time position, which will have great positive impact on women now and long into the future. We look greatly forward to working with all of you, and we promise to work hard to be an accurate voice for women so that we can continue to advise you appropriately to set policies that will allow each and every one of us to thrive here in San Mateo County. Thank you.
Supervisor Corzo?
Thank you for that presentation. And I also wanted to name that I believe Commissioner Jess Hudson is also in the room. Didn't get to give her a shout out earlier, but thank you for the presentation, and happy to hear from any other supervisors or go to public comment. Thank you.
Are there any other supervisors who'd like to comment on this item?
I would just say thank you for your work. It is so important to continue to highlight women, uplift women, and support women's issues. So the work that you're doing is so important to all of us.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
Mr. President, I don't have any speaker slips from chambers, but I do see one hand raised in the room, so why don't you go ahead and come up, sir?
Okay.
My name is Jose Reyes. I want to thank you for your work. My mother was a single mom who started working for Caltrans years ago. And that was a time when men didn't accept women into the state. And she got hurt, and there was nobody to support her through all of that. Women's going on and getting hurt in the state, and my mother starved. 3 boys by herself, raising us, abused, all the whole ugly. But to see women standing up and making a noise, my mom, she would love to hear this. So I thank you. You're awesome. That's it. Just to give them acknowledgement and praise. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. No further speakers from Chambers, so I'll now ask those in Zoom to please raise your hand to comment. This is for item 3 for Women's History Month. And while we wait for those, I will mention that we did receive written comments, which were emailed to the board and also put on the public site. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Great. Thank you very much. Supervisor Corso, did you want to introduce this item?
Absolutely. I move approval of this item. Thank you.
Great. And Supervisor Corso, you would like to make a motion to accept this annual report as well, correct? Okay. Seeing that there's a motion, is there a second? All right. Can I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Supervisor Spear? Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
I just want to say thank you as the father of a high school sophomore. Thanks for making the world a better place for her. Yes.
And Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes to approve unanimously.
Thank you very much. We come to item 5, which is the action to accept the San Mateo County Measure K Oversight Committee's annual report for FY 2023-2024. This item is brought to us by the county executive.
And President Canepa, members of the board, thank you for this. You have heard some information about this, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Mankia to introduce this item.
Good morning, President Canepa, honorable members of the Board of Supervisors. Before you, you have Michael Salazar, which is the chair of the Oversight Committee for San Mateo County for Measure K, and he is going to go ahead and give you a presentation today on the work that the Oversight Committee has done and all the departments have contributed to with the positive and performance data that they have been providing. So, Mr. Salazar.
Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, honorable supervisors, President Canepa. Always an honor to be here in front of you. I wear many hats in this county, but today it's my privilege to be here as chair of the Measure K Oversight Committee. I'm going to provide some brief highlights and some talking points on the report that you have that we deliver every year. I did want to take just a brief moment to acknowledge the support that we get from the county staff, Mr. Mankia and his team. Mr. Callaghy, thank you for your support. I also wanted to mention our legal counsel, Melissa Andrikopoulos, who is always providing support and advice, and of course our clerk staff who supports us in creating our agendas and supporting our meetings, and also Mr. Marshall Wilson, who does a wonderful job in helping us promote the work that's done with this very important funding source. By way of overview, Measure K is a half-cent sales tax that was originally approved in 2012. It was labeled Measure A then, and in 2016 it was expanded for another 20 years and currently scheduled to sunset in March of 2043. According to the original language in the ballot measure, the funds were to be used for abuse prevention programs, healthcare services, county parks, fire protection and safety services, and educational programs. Also included in the ballot language was a requirement to have an oversight committee, which is made up of 10 board-appointed members of the community. I wanted to list them here. Dan Quigg and myself, Michael Salazar, represent District 1. Tish Bussell and John Medina, who's joining me here today. In District 2, Bob Griselli and Mike Kovalich, Manuel Ramirez, Marta Ines Bookbinder, and Wallace Moore. 2 years ago when I presented, we were celebrating the 10th anniversary of Measure K. This year, there's another significant milestone in that at 12 years, we had our first set of the original committee members actually term out. So the bylaws say that we are allowed to serve 3 4-year terms, and 2 of our members, Dan Quigg, who was also a former mayor in Millbrae, and Manuel Ramirez, who started off originally, finished their 12 years, and so I just wanted to take a brief moment to acknowledge their service and thank them for their longevity in supporting this important work. As part of our bylaws as well, we are required to come here once a year and present our report, which includes one, an annual audit of the Measure K receipts, two, the results of the agreed upon procedures, and also a report on the performance of the Measure K initiatives. Before I jump into some of the numbers, I also wanted to mention that one of the things that we do annually is we have a subcommittee that will break out and evaluate some of the performance of what we're doing. I wanted to acknowledge John Medina, Tish Bussell, and Dave Burrow, who participated in this year's subcommittee. The ad hoc committee came back with a number of recommendations, which I felt was important to highlight because we do want to make sure that we're promoting transparency and openness in what we do. And I think a lot of these current initiatives that we worked with staff to create do demonstrate that we're moving in that direction. And some of the recommendations that came back this year included adding a cover sheet which describes some of the performance report parameters, breaking out Measure K support and FAA items, which sort of fall into a special category, separating out capital projects as well because they have a longer duration and can be measured probably more accurately in a way that spans multiple years. They also discussed using business intelligence tools to provide a more graphical representation of the performance on the website. They recommended collecting data twice a year versus once a year as we currently do, and also recommended that the committee meet quarterly rather than twice a year, which is our current schedule. So with that, I will jump into some of the numbers for this year. The period that we're reporting on is the last fiscal year, so that covers July of 2023 through June of 2024. Total receipts for the year, as we can see on the slide, was $116 million. My control, okay. Expenditures for the year, total expenditures for the year were actually $124 million. And I'm sorry if I'm a little off. There was, I think, some changes made in the presentation. So currently we're tracking 189 unique performance measures, and so that is a lot of work to keep track of. Currently, I believe this is on the next slide. Yes, performance highlights. This slide demonstrates how in the different categories that we track, each of the performance or the collective of the performance measures are performing. In aggregate, we're looking at about 71% of all the measures that we track meeting their targets for the past fiscal year. 29% of those either missed their mark or are still in progress, and so those will continue to be monitored. The current balance overall of the fund is $253 million. Significant in that is that over the past 12 years, this fund has generated $1 billion in revenue, and we've expended close to $800 million of that in very important community services. It's interesting to note that this year the president decided that pennies were no longer important enough to be minted, and so an insignificant amount of money, like a penny, so we're talking about half of a penny that's added on to every dollar of sales tax, has generated this much benefit to the community. I think it's pretty amazing. As far as our annual audit, I wanted to mention that the county controller, Juan Rigosa's office, did perform the audit. They found no exceptions, no significant findings, and so we did have a clean audit again this year. Okay. All right, so now I will jump into very quickly some of the highlights of the work that's being done with the revenue from Measure K. Under the category of public safety, we sponsored, the county sponsored 2 gun buyback programs this year. And just to sort of emphasize the importance of that, you know, this year the county collected 297 firearms through the program. 24 of them were assault weapons, and there was also some untraceable ghost guns and a machine gun that were recovered through this program. So very important work to get some of those weapons off the street. Go back. So still under the guise of public safety, there were also 2 first responder vehicles that were purchased for the La Honda Fire Brigade. The 2 vehicles, which are specialized off-road pieces of equipment to service the rural areas of the county, cost a total of almost $500,000. These vehicles probably would not have been purchased were it not for the availability of Measure K funds. Also, there is a fire station. The Pescadero Fire Station has been on the radar for Measure K funds for a while. It's going to be a $20 million effort to relocate this fire station out of a flood zone, and Measure K funds are critical in helping move that project forward. I believe we are expecting construction to begin this year sometime. And the board has already approved a 99-year lease for the property, so things are definitely on track to move forward on that. Next, moving into health and mental health. There is the North County Wellness Center, which benefited from $132 million of Measure K funding. And this is a very important center in the North County, which will provide not only health services, but social services and a number of other benefits to low-cost residents in the North County. Measure K also provides funding for Serenity House, which provides services for adults undergoing mental health crises. In general, the clients who participate in this program stay in the program for about 10 days, but we've seen very positive results coming out of the people who move through the program. And so, again, very important for the county. In terms of youth and education, Measure K supports the Big Lift, which has been in existence for a number of years now and provides literacy programs for children in K through 3rd grade. Measure K also supports CASA, which is the Court-Appointed Special Advocates of San Mateo County. And through this program, youth in the county receive important support throughout the year. I'm looking for, okay, so yeah, ongoing support for that. Housing and homelessness. And this is one where we have contributed a vast majority of the funding. One program that stands out is Gateway Rising in the city of Menlo Park. Received a $5 million loan from the county to move forward, and this is a 140-unit affordable housing project, as I mentioned, in Menlo Park. There's also ongoing support for homeless outreach. The Measure K funds have been used to help support the annual audit of homeless individuals in the county. There's also another project that we're highlighting, Kiku Crossing in San Mateo. That's another 225 affordable homes along with additional support. It's a project that was partnered with Mid-Penn Housing, and that project received $5 million of Measure K funding. Moving on to parks and environment, wanted to highlight the Don Horsley County Park at Tenitas Creek. named after former supervisor, former sheriff, and esteemed colleague Don Horsley. This area is receiving a number of significant upgrades, ADA accessibility, improved parking, other amenities to make that area more enjoyable to the public. And Measure K, along with a few other funding sources, were used in funding that project. Older adults and veteran services. So Measure K funding and support from the Board of Supervisors has helped in establishing a Veterans Commission. The funding continues to support all the programs of the Veterans Commission, as well as the San Mateo County Veterans Services Office, which helps veterans in obtaining benefits, which are sometimes difficult to obtain through government programs. Sometimes it's a bit of a maze for them, and the office does provide them some support in doing that. The county and the Measure K Fund also support the San Mateo County Elder and Dependent Audit Protection Team that provides very important resources for our aging population, especially around training and fraud prevention and financial abuses. And then I believe our final category is community services, and we through the Measure K Fund have supported the San Mateo County Pride Center. Measure K funds provided $500,000 to help renovate the center and provide ongoing support for the work there, and also Second Harvest of Silicon Valley has received Measure K funds as well. And through that program, an average of about 129,000 people in the county receive services every month. So with that, I just want to thank you again for your time and your support, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Great. I just really want to thank you, Michael, and the subcommittee for all the wonderful work that you do. As you know, when Measure A was first approved, and then Measure K, there's the component to make sure that the tax dollars were being spent appropriately. And so I think your work and John's work and the work of the others you had mentioned is really important work. And let me just say, I find it interesting in how serious you take this work, to say you want additional meetings to look at that potentially instead of to look at quarterly meetings. It really gives me hope, not as an elected official, but as a resident of the County of San Mateo, about how important and diligent you guys have really done in making sure. And then finally, I think what's important is we are truly blessed to have this supplemental, and you've really just kind of outlined it, whether it's housing, whether it's the community services, whether it's public safety. And so to have this backstop, which is the subcommittee, not only are we doing great work, but to have that key oversight is critical in ensuring that these tax dollars are spent appropriately. And so with that, do we have any comments from our colleagues? Supervisor Spear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Michael, great to see you. You referenced that 29% did not meet the performance standards. Could you provide us with a list of those particular entities that did not?
I believe that all of those are included in the report, and I can't reference them all off the top of my head. I believe a majority of them are probably going to be capital projects which span multiple years, and so that was one of the reasons that the subcommittee recommended that we break out the capital projects so that they are measured separately, and so we don't have this annual goal that they should be meeting, because it's going to be a different time horizon for them.
Okay, maybe Robert, could you provide that?
Yes, we can provide you a list.
Okay. Secondly, in reviewing some of the older grantees, there were a couple that I noticed that they didn't draw down on the money. And I'm curious if that is one-offs, or is that something that you've looked at? where they're granted X number of dollars and they, maybe end up only drawing down a certain percentage of that.
And I think I'll refer back to Mr. Mankia.
In many cases, some of the values were drawn down less because a refrigerator was not at the cost in which they had originally anticipated, or the roof that was put on this piece was not the same thing. And at the same time, in some of the larger areas, when we're utilizing, for example, in homeless services, when we have an extra CDBG dollar that may be coming in, or a community-based dollar that may be coming in, we would rather use those dollars first and put the Measure K back into the reserve, which is what's generated the reserve. So in many cases, there are situations where certain dollars may not have been expended, but they were for reasons in which we would rather preserve the Measure K dollar and hold it into a fund and use other dollars that may have come in, whether it be a donation dollar, a CDBG, some federal or state money that we may have had that would be better utilized for that function and service.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Supervisor Corzo, do you have any questions remotely or comments?
Sure, I have a quick question. First, I just want to thank Councilmember Salazar for his presentation. I know this committee takes its responsibility very seriously. That being said, there were the metrics that were shared around, what grants are meeting their goals, and I was just wondering if there might be some recommendations for how we can kind of support those organizations to meet their performance measures.
I'll say that the performance goals is more of an art than a science, and I know that over the years I've been on the committee for 8 years now, and we've seen various tweaks and adjustments to try to make those things work a little better. Also, going way back to my time as a county employee when I was coming up with metrics to support our department, it is sometimes difficult to predict what number will be a good justification for the work that's being done. But I do believe that, for the most part, the departments that support the individual efforts are very engaged in making sure that the services are being met. Sometimes there are things that are just out of the control of the county staff or the NGOs that support these things. And so, we set out with goals to serve, in some cases, a certain number of people in the public. And if the public just doesn't show up, and if that was our metric, then we could miss it for those reasons. And so I do believe that the county is doing everything it can to support the efforts that are being undertaken.
Thank you. And just one more question. Do you have, I think you touched on this already, but if you wouldn't mind just restating any other recommendations you have for how to make the Measure K awarding process more transparent? I know that's not really the part that you work on directly, but just curious if this has come up as a discussion on your committee.
Yeah, it's really not our purview, so it's not something that we've discussed. So yeah, that is something that this board needs to work out, so sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't have any speaker slips from chambers, so we'll go ahead and ask for comments on Zoom at this time. Please click raise hand to comment for item number 5 on the Measure K Oversight Committee's annual report. One hand raised for Sid Young. Sid, please unmute and begin.
Thank you. I'm Carlisle Ann Young, and I live in Moss Beach, California, over on the mid-coast in the unincorporated area, which is Supervisor Mueller's area. And I noticed when you went through a lot of the program that there's not much that goes to the coast side. And I'm wondering about the equity of how you fund each project, because year after year, everything we talk about is having an emergency evacuation center over here. especially since the fires in Lahaina, over in Maui, and recently we had a really poor evacuation for tsunami alert. And then, of course, in 2000, there was the CZU lightning strike fires. So I'd like to see a breakdown by zip code of what you've been giving to the north, well, I should say the mid-coast. I noticed you gave plenty to places where cities are located. There's 20 cities in the county, but don't forget about the unincorporated areas. It seems that you do when you're funding the Measure K. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Becca Keeler.
Actually,
Becca?
Supervisor Spear.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I think Ms. Young would benefit from Mr. Manchia's analysis, which he did on where the money is going and who's getting a disproportionate share.
So within our analysis, 80% of Measure K funds are spent, a little over 80% are Measure K funds are spent countywide, meaning that the service component, although maybe in a particular zip code, because that's where the space is at, or the organization's main hub is at, which is where the values are there, the services are countywide. That does not mean that everybody is participating in those services, but the services are meant to be countywide. The remaining 19% of that, 33% of those are actually on the coast side. So they're actually services that are designated to the coast side itself. So of the 19% and about 19 projects that are outside of that 80% that we talked about, 33% of them are actually coast side functions within the services.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any additional comments?
Mr. President, we do have one more hand raised.
We do, okay.
For Rebecca Keeler.
Okay.
Rebecca, please unmute and begin.
Yes, good morning again, and thank you. I'm hoping maybe Measure K can be a place where we could fund a feasibility study for the juvenile facility at Camp Kemp. I know there's a million reasons, or will be a million reasons why we can't do this, but as well as being the wealthiest county in California, I think we should be, or are a pretty smart county, and I think that there's a way we can stop wasting $1.8 million on this beautiful facility that's been empty again this year, and improve some kids' lives and maybe even save some kids' lives. We need step-down programs, inpatient substance abuse programs. We need a special stipend for San Mateo County resource families to help increase the number of resource families in the county and to help preserve the ones we have. And we need transitional age youth, transitional housing, and homelessness services. Hopefully, maybe Measure K can be something that can look at these things. Thank you.
Thank you. No further speakers.
Great. Supervisor Gaucher, would you like to make a motion to accept this report?
Yes, I make a motion to accept the San Mateo County Measure K Oversight Committee's annual report for fiscal year 23-24.
Is there a second?
I'll second and thank Michael Salazar for all his good work.
Wonderful. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Spear.
Aye.
Supervisor Corzo.
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller.
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher.
Yes.
President Canepa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Medina. We'll now move to a matter set for a specified time. Specifically, we have for 9:45. And I will note that it is not 9:45, it's 10:42. I don't know if that's a reflection on the chair, but item 6, which is action to approve Measure K budget allocations in preparation for the fiscal year 2025-2026 recommended budget. This item comes from the county executive and Mr. Mankia. Mr. Mankia.
So thank you, President Canepa and honorable members of the board. The item you have in front of you is the short version of what we talked about at the retreat. This is actually just the budget. And again, the reasoning for the budget coming out separate from the budget that is associated to the general fund is so that we can actually put contracts and put the value of the salaries and benefits associated with positions that are currently in the county in as part of the budget and fund them through Measure K at this point in time. As you have in the memo, We have some things that have come out of, obviously, the discussion at the retreat in regards to Measure K. We are beginning to work on and with departments to look at all the Measure K items as was requested at the retreat itself. We also do plan on putting a letter out to the CBOs and the departments themselves so that everybody understands that due to current times, there may be some changes afoot in regards to how Measure K is distributed over the course of the next few years. In regards to that, I think it's important. Michael Salazar just discussed through the Oversight Committee that one of the things that was, or many of the things that were part of the original Measure A that was out there, one of the things that was not part of that was the actual idea that it was also meant to help fund mandates and services for residents during times of need. So this item actually came out as or during the recession or right after the recession was had in 2010. It became an item in 2011 and then was voted on in 2012. And a lot of the things behind it were the fact that what we found is that during the recession, when people needed things most, it became difficult for the county to maneuver because it was also a time in which we did not have all the value of money that we would normally have to move things forward. So I think those were the things that were discussed over the course of the retreat. And we are looking at really making sure that there's meaning and meaningfulness in regards to these things that are Measure K. So the item in front of you is to approve a budget, somewhat preliminary. It will be approved again when you put the budget in June, or when you approve the budget in June, and then again when you approve the budget in September. So there are some pieces to this. This is just an item to be able to allow the departments to get contracts together with the service providers for those contracts that aren't extending or that would end at the end of this year, and for them to be able to put in the value of the salaries and benefits for staff and others that are part of this function as well.
Great. Supervisor Corzo, I know you're remote. Do you have any comments on this item?
Not at the moment. I'll
Okay.
leave room for others.
Just want to make sure. Colleagues, are there any comments? It's pretty, yeah, thank you. Supervisor Gaucher is right. This is pretty straightforward. Just for the public, you know, we spent a lot of time at our retreat identifying the priorities. Obviously, the challenges around VLF, the uncertainty through federal and state government. But I think the plan before us today reflects sort of the direction that the board wanted to go. And I think what the county executive had asked us was board members is to really be specific. And I think what this item does is really reflects the priority of the board. For the public, one of the main adjustments is around, and you could speak to that, you spoke to that, Robert, is really making sure, you know, that we reassess. We're going to be sending out, or the finance office, county executive's office will be sending out letters to CBOs and others. But this is the plan set forth by the board. It's a strong plan, and one that we spend a lot of time on. So I want to thank my colleagues for doing that. Seeing that there are no comments, going back to Supervisor Corzo, Supervisor Vice President Corzo, do you have any additional comments or questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. So I know we're going to have a lot of public comment on this. I just have a feeling. Do we have any public comment in the audience, Sherry?
Mr. President, I don't have any speaker slips from chambers. We did receive written comments, which were shared with the board as well as placed on the public website for viewing. And I did receive one additional written comment, but at this time I'd like to ask those on Zoom first to raise your hand to make any public comment for item number 6 for approving Measure K budget allocations. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I'll go ahead and go to the additional written comment we received from Carolyn Shepard. To the Board of Supervisors, I am writing in support of Measure K funds for affordable housing and urging an increase to the current $19 million. With the current political climate in Washington and uncertainty it brings to the cost of housing materials, I believe that whatever the county can do to support housing development is needed. Our organization, Solutions for Supportive Homes, represents families who are supporting their adult children with mental health challenges and who require permanent supportive housing once the parents can no longer care for them or pass away. This population represents the extremely low-income population in our county and is at risk of homelessness unless we can provide the affordable supportive housing options that they need. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of how Measure K funds can support the needs for affordable housing. That's the end of the comment, Mr.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Spear, would you like to make the motion? Okay, second. Roll call, please.
Motion by Supervisor Spear, seconded by Supervisor Gaucher. Roll call vote, Supervisor Spear. Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you to our staff. It's now time for us to move to the regular agenda. We'll start with item 7, introduction of an ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 4.72 of the San Mateo County Ordinance Code regarding backflow prevention and waiving the reading of the ordinance in its entirety. Ms. Forshey, Heather Forshey, welcome.
Good morning, President Canepa, members of the board, Mr. Callaghy, Mr. Niblin, Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Mankia. I'm Heather Forshey, Director of Environmental Health Services, and I'm here to discuss or introduce amendments to the county's backflow prevention ordinance. Now, first, a little bit of background. There we go. So the objective, sorry about that. The objective of backflow prevention, also known as cross-connection control, is to protect public health and safety by ensuring that our drinking water is protected from backflow of contaminants, such as chemicals in dirty water, gases, and other substances that may be pulled into the water pipes from pressure fluctuations or suction. The equipment that performs this function is called a backflow prevention assembly, and an example is shown here in the image. Because the functionality of this equipment that protects the drinking water supply is essential to the foundation of public health and safety, the state mandates that all public water systems have a cross-connection control program in place to ensure the public water supply is protected with adequate and functioning backflow prevention assembly devices. San Mateo County has had a backflow prevention ordinance in place since 1977. County Environmental Health is one of 7 environmental health departments across the state with a local cross-connection control program and associated ordinance developed to support area public water systems. Environmental Health has agreements with 18 of the 23 largest public water systems to administer their cross-connection control program on their behalf. They pay a fee for the service we provide. As part of our program, on behalf of these public water systems, Environmental Health Services manages over 12,000 backflow prevention assemblies. We ensure that they're tested annually. We manage the database of assemblies and their individual test results. We review reports submitted by backflow testers along with the documentation of repairs and replacements of the assemblies. We're the point of contact for owners of the backflow assemblies and also the backflow assembly testers. We mail all of the compliance notices and perform progressive enforcement of state regulations pertaining to testing of this equipment. And we generate monthly compliance reports for each of the public water systems and assist them during their compliance inspections with the State Division of Drinking Water, along with other tasks. In December of 2023, the State Water Resources Control Board adopted a new handbook that incorporates regulatory updates and statewide policy changes mandated for all cross-connection control programs statewide. This handbook became effective July 1st of 2024. It was this state-driven change to program requirements that precipitated the need to amend the county's ordinance to maintain alignment. Specific changes include an amendment to reflect the state's requirement for equipment testers to submit annual reports verifying their equipment's calibration to Environmental Health for our review. Also, there's updated definitions and other minor cleanup language to realign the state's requirements for cross-connection control programs. There is no net county cost associated with this agenda item, and its passage will update the county's ordinance to align with the new state requirements. In conclusion, Environmental Health Services recommends approval of this ordinance amendment before you today. And with that, I'm happy to to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Forshey?
I don't have a question, but I want to just thank you for your report. As I've seen those devices or those apparatuses in the community, I didn't know what it was for, but now I know that that's what they support. So
Again, thank you for the report and the education.
Are there any additional comments from board members? Seeing none, can we go to public comment?
Sure, I don't see any speaker slips or hands raised in chambers, so I will go ahead and take comments from Zoom. And Zoom, please click raise hand to comment. This is for item number 7's introduction of an ordinance concerning backflow prevention. One hand raised for Sid Young. Please unmute and begin.
Thank you. I didn't see, sorry, I'm a director of the Montero Water and Sanitary District, and I didn't see either of the coastside water districts on that list. Are we exempt, or you don't support us, or was it just overlooked? It would be Montero Water and Sanitary District and Coastside County Water District.
So all of the water systems that were listed have agreements with environmental health, and those not listed perform their own programs.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'll move adoption.
Thank you. Second. Great. Roll call, please. Thank you, Supervisor Spear.
Great, we have a motion by Spear, seconded by Supervisor Gaucher. Roll call vote, Supervisor Spear?
Aye.
Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes.
President Canepa, I just note that the move, we actually introduced it. The matter will come back to you on consent for adoption at a subsequent meeting.
Great. Thank you for stating that, County Attorney. The next item on the agenda is item 8 from Information Services, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing the ISD chief to execute necessary contract documents for the procurement and renewal of software, hardware, and maintenance agreements in a total aggregate amount of $21,777,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Wentworth.
Good morning, President Canepa, honorable members of the board, Mr. Callaghy, Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Mankia, and Mr. Niblin. I'm here to give some brief presentation about this change in the way that we process our payments for software renewals. This is really a ministerial item, but really what it's designed to do is bring some clarity and some transparency to the work that we do at ISD. It's very important that you see these dollars go out. But ultimately, we're working with the county executive's office, the county attorney, and the county controller's office to streamline this process a little bit. It will still be in your purview. You'll still see these items, but we hope to make this a little bit more streamlined in the way that we do this, because we'll probably be coming back to you at least twice a year to deal with these. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay. Yes, Supervisor Mueller.
I want to make sure I understand. So when these contracts are renewed, they're going to come to us in this fashion?
Correct, for the time being.
So the difficulty I have then is I can't see if it's gone out to RFP or what there's no way of knowing if it was sole sourced. There's no how long you've been in contract with them. How are we supposed to do our oversight duties if what I see is in this fashion?
Because these generally are for renewal. So the items that were brought.
Respectfully, the word you used was generally. And even if they're for renewal, how would we know that they wouldn't need to go out to RFP again?
How would you know if it would go out to RFP again? I won't use the word in general, but I would say that for most of our technology that we use in the county, we're required every 3 years to go out to RFP. So we do that. But there are foundational systems like our platform at Microsoft, or the way that our data center has been configured and set up on that technology. That generally doesn't get RFP'd every 3 years in terms of the technology that we're implementing. It will, however, get RFP'd for its cost. So we will have to go out and ensure the fact that we're definitely getting the best deal. And oftentimes these vendors that we buy from change. So in certain circumstances, like the Microsoft Corporation that we get our licensing from, it sometimes comes from Dell. We go out every 2 to 3 years to check to make sure we're getting the best value, even if we don't change the underlying platform. Did that answer your question?
It does and it doesn't. So from a vendor standpoint, if the pressure on me to provide you the best cost, if I know it's going to be presented in this format, is not there. So I personally do like to see when an item is being, how an item is being procured through what RFP process. I'd like to know how long it's being procured for. And I think that I think one of our primary duties is oversight of these contracts. This has nothing to do with our faith in you, of course, but our job is to do oversight in this area.
Understood.
And so I think I'd want to see this format changed a bit if it's going to be brought to us in such a summary fashion.
Are there any additional comments from members? Supervisor Corzo?
No comment.
You know, I just want to align my thoughts with Supervisor Mueller. I do think, you know, as we begin to look at these large agreements, you know, the board does play a huge oversight role. And Supervisor Mueller, do you have any sort of alternatives or suggestions that we can look at moving forward?
So I would like to if this is the way that the department would like to move forward and the executive's office would like to move forward, I would like to take a shot then at putting it together in a format that would give us the ability for notification if there's an issue that we want to take a deeper dive into. So one of the primary things I think is RFP, length of RFP, number of renewals, things of those nature that I think would be listed in this, that if I was a board member, I could look at and say, okay, I want to dive into this one and see what's happening.
County Executive Callaghy, that seems like a pretty fair request, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Do we have any public comment?
Can I just add
yes.
to that?
Yes.
We have another item that I think we're both bringing forward because it appears not to be one that appears to be one that's sole source. The other thing that I'm beginning to see is that a agreement is made with an entity who presumably has the lowest bid. And then we see, as we did in item 37, the amount is increased to double what the original agreement was for, and it was just for 1 year. So I wonder to what extent we have situations where a bidder will lowball it, and then after there's a relationship says, well, gee, it's actually going to take us more time. It's going to cost more. And in fact, the original bid, which we accepted, is now doubled. And in the case of 37, that is in fact the case. So I think generally, like we already supported that one, but in general, I think we need to kind of refine our contracting process and then follow up. So, and be alerted if a contract was for X and all of a sudden now it's 30% higher, 50%, or in this last case I just mentioned, 100% higher. So maybe a contracting discussion should take place at some point.
That's a good idea.
Mr. President, I don't have any speaker slips from chambers, so I'll go ahead and take public comment now from Zoom for item number 8. This is for competitive solicitation contracts. Please go ahead and click raise hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Supervisor Mueller?
So my question to you is, do we have the opportunity to sit down and get some information into a grid format before approving this if we were to bring it back at the next item? If we were to sit down and say,
Certainly.
these are some of the items we'd like to see.
Certainly.
Yes. Okay, so to my colleagues, and I'd like to put this over and sit down and see if we can fashion a format that works in this way so that the board can look at these different items and say, I have a question about this one or that one.
So Supervisor Mueller, or Mr. President, maybe it would be a motion to continue this item to the next board meeting?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller, would you like to make the motion to continue this item?
Yeah, I'll move to continue the item.
Second, or Spear second.
I'll take the roll call vote to continue the item. Supervisor Spear? Supervisor Corzo?
No.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
And President Canepa?
Yes.
Motion passes with 4 voting to continue the item and Supervisor Corzo casting a nay vote.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Wensmore. Thank you, staff. With that, we'll now move to item 9, which is to adopt a resolution setting employer and member contribution rates for the San Mateo County Employees Retirement Association for FY 2025-2026. This item is from the County Executive's Office, Mr. Callaghy and Mr. Mankia.
Good morning, President Canepa, honorable members of the Board of Supervisors. This is an item that comes before you every year where we have to approve the rate in which we will be paying our retirement contribution for the following year. So this would be for 25-26. I do want to point out within the memo and state that on December 10th of last year, we actually proposed a change in the way that we would fund our unfunded liability. In prior years, we had been spending $10 million a year, just adding it to the unfunded liability. And what we did last year on December 10th is approve the idea that we would move $50 million, which was moved, I think, yesterday, to SAMSARA. And what would happen is with that $50 million up front, they are able to put that into the pool of dollars and generate a larger value of interest or a larger value of repayment for that money. Rather than just the 10, it's of the full 50, which lasts a little longer. In our discussion with SAMSARA over the course of last year, we also wanted to make sure that we could stabilize the rate in which we would pay. And during that discussion on December 10th, we came to the conclusion that with this $50 million payment and a secondary payment being made in 2030 for the same amount of $50 million, that we would be able to make the contribution rate 27% and remain still in that 85 to 92% funded rate. So what we are doing is utilizing our money, one-time monies up front now. What that did is actually bring money back into our coffer, so it's no longer a yearly contribution. And what it did for this year, as you can see, is that it took a 30.85% value and brought it down to that 27%, which is a savings of 3.85% over the course of the year. So that's how we put this together before you. So this is just our yearly contribution that we have to approve for SAMSARA for 25-26.
Great. Supervisor Spear.
Again, Mr. Mankia, I just want to compliment you for doing your magic to save money and create more resources for the county.
Thank you. Great. Are there any comments, questions? Seeing none, do we have any public comment?
Mr. President, I haven't received any speaker slips from chambers. At this time, I'll ask those on Zoom to click raise hand to comment. This is for item 9 on the SAMSARA item. Seeing no hands, I'll just confirm with Supervisor Corzo if she has any comments to share. And she's confirming no comments to share.
All right. With that, can I get a motion in a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Great. Moved by Supervisor Gaucher and seconded by Supervisor Spear. Roll call vote, Supervisor Spear. Supervisor Gaucher.
Yes.
Sorry, Supervisor Corzo is what I meant.
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller.
Yes.
And back to Supervisor Gaucher.
Yes.
President Canepa.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Colleagues, just a reminder, we have 2 more items. We have item 10, and then we will then go back to item 33. So item 10, which is a district discretionary measure K item to amend an agreement with Empowerment Through Action at Hillsdale to extend the term and revise the scope of services to replace stipends with direct funding of gardening materials, no change to the not to exceed the amount of $19,500. This item is brought to us by Supervisor Corzo.
Thank you. 1 second. Let me get my notes here. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, Measure K continues to be a really important way that we invest in our county. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me find the right item here. Okay, so this is for a grant for empowerment through action at Hillsdale High School in the city of San Mateo. It is an item that will support a program that provides basic needs to low-income students and families. I'm really grateful for their partnership. This these funds will be investing in the expansion of the community garden at Hillsdale High School that is actually used to feed students and families. And I'm not sure if we have someone from Empowerment Through Action with us at the moment, but I'm excited about the expansion of their community garden and investing, the possibility of investing in this with Measure K funds. So with that, I will ask for support in this grant. Thank you.
Great. Any comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, public comment, please.
Sure, Mr. President. No speaker cards from chambers, so on Zoom I'll ask those to click raise hand to comment for item number 10, District 2 Measure K item, amending the grant agreement through Empowerment Through Action at Hillsdale. And no hands raised, Mr. President.
All right, Supervisor Corso, would you like to move forward with the motion?
Yes. So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Spear? Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher?
Yes.
And President Canepa.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Supervisor Spear casting a nay vote.
Great, thank you very much. And let me welcome our probation chief, Chief Keene. We're now on to item 33, to adopt a resolution authorizing a waiver of the request for proposal process and the execution of an agreement with Cognizant to provide dock assist and field assist, and then C, the chief probation officer or designee to execute contract agreements. Thank you for joining us today. How are you, Chief?
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Supervisors, Mr. Callaghan, Mr. Mankia, Mr. Nibbling. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I do understand that there certainly would be questions regarding this request. Just want to give you a little background, first of all. During my time as probation chief, one of the things I've tried really hard to do is to look for opportunities to provide not only innovation within the organization and the county, but also look for ways to ensure that financially we are being responsible in our fiduciary duties to make sure that we spend public funds in an accurate way, but also try to find opportunities for savings along the way. And so when this idea came up for the utilization of AI in our space, we didn't take that lightly, and I didn't take it lightly personally. I recognize the county's really focus around ensuring that artificial intelligence in no way replaces our current workforce, but finds a way to enhance the work that we do. And so with this idea around Cognizant is really a manifestation of that. It is looking to assist the staff that we have. It's also an acknowledgement that we're really struggling in terms of our hiring practices. We have had really good focus, I should say, around recruitment, but still it becomes a little bit of a challenge in terms of bringing people on board. Over the last 5 years, we've been in what I would call our retirement cycle. We've lost a significant number of employees and continue to lose them through the retirement. And so really this is an effort to also ensure that the employees we have here now that are working with us, we're taking account for the idea that the work has changed and there will be more work required. And so there's an opportunity to try to reduce repetitive motion injuries, opportunities for people to do their work in a more efficient way. Also, too, as we bring new employees on board, this is also an opportunity for us to, I would say, elevate and advance their learning process along the way. And so as I started to kind of get involved with this process, I've also been a part of national committees on AI for probation, as well as a statewide work group that also works with Judicial Council around this issue of artificial intelligence in community corrections. And so the reason why we're asking to work with Cognizant is that they are the only AI program that is probation specific. So there are other options out there, obviously Copilot and ChatGPT and DeepSeek and a bunch of other different ones that are out there. And there are many that are coming and promise to actually be able to do the work. This group is the only program right now that exists that actually is specific to our work, primarily in the area of the documents that we have to produce for the court. Really, it's an opportunity for us to look at it, and they use this term that I really enjoy, which is it's really focused on, let's say if you're at home preparing your meal and you had a sink full of dishes, and the idea is, do I want to do these dishes or do I want to cook this meal? And so what Cognizant does, in essence, is does the dishes for us so we can prepare and focus on the meal. It is really focused on allowing our staff to work on analytical responses to the court, and not spending as much time as gathering information and putting things together that in a lot of ways take more time than the work that we really want them to do, which is to provide really important analysis that are going to improve public safety. So that's the focus. That's the reason why we're going with this particular group, and I really would like to be able to answer any specific questions that I know you all have.
Thank you. Supervisor Spear.
Well, first of all, I'm more confused now than I was before. You said that, so we had this pilot program.
Yes.
And how much did we pay for the pilot program?
We didn't pay anything for the pilot, ma'am. We worked very closely with them to look at what San Mateo County's needs are, and we were one of 4 other counties that worked with them on the pilot to help develop this process.
So we were used for their development of their AI technology, it sounds
Well, I would like to kind of probably say, ma'am, we worked in collaboration and
I
not
understand.
necessarily were used.
Okay, so, and you're using it for recruitment
No,
and
ma'am. I didn't say I was using it for recruitment, ma'am. What I said is that it's an acknowledgement of understanding we're having recruitment issues. And so as we lose staff, the work itself can become more cumbersome. And so this process allows us to more efficiently do the work that's in front of the staff we have today. I would use the recruitment statement just to say that it's an acknowledgement that we do and we are down staff within our organization. And so
Okay.
we need something to offset
so
those.
this AI is going to do what?
So twofold, ma'am. The first phase of the AI is working to assist in the report writing process. And so what
So writing the reports for the court.
No, ma'am. What it would do is assist in the report writing process. What it does is it helps to gather information from a wide variety of resources. So for example, one of the key components to writing a pre-sentence report for the court is the analysis of a police report. Police reports vary, as you know, in length. Sometimes they can be short 5-page documents. Other times, if it's a very comprehensive crime, it could be a 200-page report. So that analysis and breaking down and summarizing that process is one of the more cumbersome parts of the report writing process. So what the actual tool does is it assists in the analysis of the report. It also assists in utilizing access to various other information about the individual to help put together a consolidated document that then serves as the foundation for the writing of the various elements of the report.
So have you attempted to use ChatGPT to take a police report and see how they would, and what's the quality of that?
Well, I think the quality of the report varies greatly, but it is workable. So as I said, I've been a part of looking at these various tools for quite a while. And yes, it is an open source opportunity, and it's free to a certain extent. The problem, though, is that it is not integratable with sieges and other criminal justice databases. One thing that Cognizant has that's much more beneficial than these open source spaces is that it's working to build relationships across a variety of different platforms to integrate all those platforms to make a more trustworthy and seamless process.
So this was a sole source contract, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And why couldn't you go into an RFP?
Well, as I said, ma'am, the reality is that I spent a lot of time over 8 months working specifically in this area to know what's out there. I value and greatly, respect the RFP process. I do RFPs for 99% of everything we do in our organization. We're very limited in any sole source spaces we have. This one was just very unique in the sense that we wanted something that's very specific to probation. We didn't want something that could do possibly parts of it, and then really would also then become an issue with us once we wanted to do more in integration with other tools that we have, other case management systems we have, other links to other departments and other resources we work with. That is a very trusted space.
All right, let me ask you this question. It's for 5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the contract allow you to cancel
Yes,
in a
ma'am.
year?
It allows us to cancel the contract with notice to the vendor.
With 30 days?
Yes, ma'am, 30-day notice,
All
10-day
right.
notice, actually.
Because what I'm concerned about is this is a 5-year contract with a sole source for 5 years. AI is changing minute by minute, and there may be a much more sophisticated, a better product that we should avail ourselves of. And I just am concerned that
Well, if I
we
may,
could
ma'am,
be losing
Well,
out on an opportunity.
If I may, ma'am, I think there's one of the things that I've tried to do is to look at it from both angles. There's the sole source part of this project, but to your point earlier about ChatGPT, for example, I see it as an integration of this particular product specifically for the work that we're going to do, but it's also an acknowledgement that all of these other platforms are working and happening at the same time. And so we're going to use and utilize those in conjunction with other county departments. We're working very closely with county IT around framework, realizing that our staff have access to these other things as well. So it would behoove us to figure out ways to integrate all of these different projects together. So I understand your concern about the length of the contract, and I also understand the speed in which AI is changing. However, I think we've created a space for ourselves that where if we were unsatisfied with the work that they're producing, we have an out, and we have a way to then transition to other things. What we've seen in our county in terms of case management programs, for example, this happens quite frequently, unfortunately, where, as I think one of you referenced earlier, somebody comes in, promises the world, and then all of a sudden they fall short. And so it is a realization that we will have to monitor and stay on top of this program to ensure that it gives us what we need, and it's also changing with the times.
All right, all right. Supervisor Mueller.
So, Mr. Keene, I actually have other issues beyond the contracting department, and some of it I think is going to go beyond the ability today to talk about this, because I think we really need to have a board policy that sets out a framework, a template of questions that need to be answered when we approve AI purchases. But I have deep concerns about this purchase because, and not necessarily, and we'll have to bear them out, but to rely on ChatGPT or large language models to be determinative of a person's outcome in the justice process when they're known to hallucinate causes me, I need to make sure that there's a proper validation there. So, well, respectfully, let me go ahead and ask the questions. So my first questions are going to be to County Council, and you can answer them if you know, but with respect to risk, have we checked to make sure that they have adequate insurance for product liability and general liability claims?
Yes.
So what's the amount of insurance that they're carrying?
So I don't have the number in front of me. I can get it for you, but that was one of the key components of the relationship of the contract, was to ensure that there would be insurance for those things. But to your point, sir, this model doesn't make determinative factors around a person's eligibility or suitability for probation. It is not a large learning model to that extent. It doesn't do that.
But you just indicated earlier that you worked with ChatGPT. So what it does is it creates the report looking at looking at all the documentation, correct?
So what it does, it creates an outline for the report. And I'm sorry this is a much more longer conversation than I'm sure the board has time for today. But it's really important that I clear these up. This tool in no way will determine whether John Keene, the defendant, is a suitable person and should be treated a certain way in the system. What it does, sir, is create a model for the framework of the report that still has to be approved by humans. It still has to be read through by humans, and there is a process within our organization to ensure that. We won't ever take a report or parts of a report that this model builds and just simply submit that to the report. Ethically, that would be improper to do. Morally, it would be improper to do. So that's not what we're trying to do here today.
And I think that's why we needed the board policy, because what I really need to understand is what is the validation process that we use to procure this, and what is the ongoing validation process. I also want to make sure that within the contract, if there is a customer complaint that is significant from another customer, that we're notified. I want notification if their model changes, because old validation sets wouldn't still matter anymore. Another thing that I really would like to know is whether or not the model is learning on our data. And do you know the answer to that question? Is our data going into their large language model?
So what happens is our data stays with us here at home, as with all the other departments or whoever. There's no intermingling of our spaces.
But do they take that data into their large language model as well?
We keep it here local. So we have a local version of this large language model that only serves what we're trying to do. We did not agree to actually submit our products here or our data into that space. And so what we're doing is creating a San Mateo specific space around how we use this.
But are they training on our data?
They're training here in our county on our data. Each county they work in, they create training principles for those individual counties. So we're not creating, once again, we're not using San Mateo County data to feed what happens in other spaces. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is build something here in our county that's specific to us. And I would love to come and sit down with you and talk more in detail about this, because one of the things that we have done in our organization is looked at fairness and equity around the use of risk tools. We've worked closely with large universities around the idea of bias and implicit bias within tools. I'm keenly aware of the idea of what happens when these things either have echoes or make decisions that are prompted by things that have nothing to do with individual folks. And so, as I said, I know we don't have time to really get in that today, but I really would love to sit down with you and answer some more of your questions in a much more detailed fashion, because I have a lot more information about the broader use of risk tools and AI than we probably have time to get into here today.
And I have I have done some work in this area, but I would like to go ahead and it may be very well that the board decides to go ahead and adopt this, but I would really like to create a board template through policy so that every time an AI procurement comes before us, those questions are answered in template, and we don't have to repeat in every single time.
No,
and so if you're willing to work with me on that,
absolutely.
I could put this over for continues to our next item to next week. To our next board meeting.
Okay, hold on one second, because I do have questions. Are there any other board members that have questions or comments? Supervisor Corzo?
Not at the moment.
So Chief, can you talk a little bit about, your department has really over the years really downsized in a good way. It's been very helpful to the budget, I think to the tune of maybe $20 to $25 million. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, sir, it does.
And so when I hear you talk about AI and utilizing it, it's really a tool to sort of help you, right? Because obviously you're never going to, maybe you get those positions later, but probably the probability of getting those positions in the future are probably slim to none, right?
It's going to be challenging.
Things are, because the space that you're working in has changed dramatically. I mean, it's just totally different than it was 10 years ago. And so I know that the board, in previous boards, is focused on innovation. And so I guess my question to you is, this proposal, I'm going to support this proposal today. I think it's reasonable. I think it makes sense. It's a lot different than the other item, because I do think the technology is needed in your department. So, in 2 sentences, tell me how this helps you. How would this help the employees? How does this help you as a chief?
Well, you're putting me in a box with 2 sentences, but
I did it on purpose, Mr. King.
I'll say,
Chief
just
King.
to be thoughtful, I'd say it assists primarily with making the work more efficient and allows for us to innovate with changing times.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is, we ask our department heads, and we'll be asking our department heads potentially to be doing different things, right, in terms of staffing. I think you've done a remarkable job in terms of how you've been able to reduce your budget, the retirees staffing. I think in this case, in the probation department, this tool is something that needs to be used. I mean, one of the things is we're trying to, and I understand Supervisor Mueller's concerns.
Absolutely.
The question is how do we balance technology without impeding technology? Because in the marketplace right now, there's just so much demand for AI. And does the county fall behind? And that's a legitimate, I think for our staff, that's a legitimate concern. So, the item before us today, colleagues, I'm going to support just because I think it's the right thing to do with a department that has, to be quite frank with you and being respectful, limited resources to what you once had. So I don't know, colleagues, if there's comments. Yes.
I do, yeah. I don't see this as a question of impeding technology. I think it's a question of whether or not you're adopting technology with proper oversight of that implementation. And so I think there's a minimum level of information that the board needs to look at when we adopt nascent AI technologies, especially when we're introducing it into our justice system, that information be compiled in a way that's transparent both for the board and for the public. And I think if we don't have that, and we haven't asked for that later on, if a hallucination is found or if there's something found of implicit bias, the people will look back and say that we didn't actually go through that public process of transparency in its implementation.
So Supervisor Miller, I'm sorry, Mr. Real quick. So are you okay if we move this item, and then with your suggested recommendations for staff moving forward, or are you asking to continue the item?
I'm asking to continue the item so we can create a staff report that answers some of these questions, and we create a template so that those questions be answered every time, so that the board can look at it and consider those. And I'm happy to be put on an ad hoc to work with the county executive's office and Mr. Keene to go ahead and prepare that template, but I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. We're going to see more and more of these AI technologies brought to us, and I think we need to make sure that we have dotted our I's and crossed our T's when we look at them.
Supervisor Spear.
Thank you. Mr. Keene, has the courts reviewed this proposal, and are they supportive of it?
So I have normalized the conversation with the courts. And
Normalized it?
I've had the conversation with the courts, Your Honor. When I say, Supervisor, when I say I've normalized it, we've had these conversations over months building up to this. And so, yes, I do have the support of the courts to do this. I'm also a part of the statewide commission on the use of AI in the court process system. And so I fully understand Supervisor Miller's concerns around it going into this kind of broader criminal justice space. And that's why I'm confident in the roadblocks that exist currently with the use of the system. But I also recognize that there is a good opportunity for us to look. And I do know, and I'm aware, although he's no longer here, but I am aware that our IT manager is working closely to help create some broader framework around the use of AI in our space, because whether we use this or not, we recognize that staff have access to things and they're utilizing these things on their own without kind of oversight at this point. And so my goal in this is to kind of create conversations and actual legitimate uses with proper oversight that actually fit both categories. Contracts that we would utilize like this, as well as the everyday use of AI and ChatGPT and other things.
You said that some of your staff is already using this technology. Are they using ChatGPT right now? Is that?
I think it's unreasonable, ma'am, to think that staff in any department is not utilizing some version of AI in their day-to-day work. It's too accessible to everyone. You can simply take your phone and open up and say, help me write an email that says this, that, or the other. And I think that we have to, as a county, have to figure out a way to put frames, to Supervisor Mueller's point, around not only the contracts that we bring forth to the board that may have AI components to it, but also conversations within what are we really looking at in terms of where are we comfortable with the everyday use of it.
So how many people do we have on probation right now?
So total in the adult space, we have around 3,200 people on probation. In the juvenile space, total we have about 380, but only 184 to 180 of such are under formal supervision at this point.
And how many probation officers handling these 3,200 cases?
That's, I would say on the adult side of the house, we probably have, I would say, less than 60 at this point. And at a point we were over 130. On the juvenile side, we have around 9, and that was from a high of about 40 a couple of years ago when I first started.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Canepa, if I may, President Canepa. Thank you for this conversation, and I obviously know Mr. Keene is a great collaborator and always has been with the county and is always looking at innovation in different ways and being a leader in probation. But there's been some questions that have been raised today, and I want to ask Mr. Keene if it'd be okay with him if we put this over till the 25th so that we can try to answer some of those questions.
If that's the will of the board, certainly.
No, thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to make a comment as I sit here. I know that people are uncomfortable with AI as it continues. Innovation is something that we need to look into. I do appreciate my colleagues' concerns because whenever you have something that is pulling information, you're afraid of the biases. I appreciate it. I am in support, but I do agree that we should probably do a little bit more. And is there an opportunity to probably do a demo of the software for the board as well, so that individuals can feel comfortable with the work? And lastly, if there's still questions, is there a way to go into maybe a 1-year contract with additional options to opt in? Is that an option as well? Or is the 5-year contract just the best way to go?
I think certainly to the benefit of the board, we can certainly go back and answer the questions that may come up here today. I think that from the contracting perspective, I think the reality is that, with most of these types of technology-based contracts, companies want you to take longer deals so they can give you better rates and things of that nature. But we can certainly re-engage them to the point of what a 1-year contract would be. So we can certainly ask of that.
Supervisor Corso?
Thank you. I think this is a very interesting conversation, and I liked Supervisor Gaucher's suggestion that we maybe get a demo. I don't know that has to happen in a board meeting, but I think I am supportive of us maybe continuing this item and kind of getting some questions answered. But I also just want to say that Chief Keene, you have led the department well, and I respect and admire the work that you do collaboratively throughout the state. And so I'm not concerned about, I think there's good questions that have been asked around bias, et cetera. I know that you have vetted this, and I know that I feel comfortable supporting it because we work closely together, and I understand how thoughtful you are when bringing anything to the board. But I do think that exploring the potential of a policy is not a bad one, and I think it can actually benefit other departments that may want to explore similar tools. And so I hope you can appreciate that, while there are questions, I think there's also genuine curiosity, and you obviously have more knowledge of how this is used and how it would be used. And so, yeah, I would suggest that maybe interested board members schedule some time with you one-on-one, and if we want to, bring it back at the next meeting, I'm fine with that.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor Corzo. Through the County Attorney's Office, my understanding is our next Board of Supervisors meeting is March 25th, right?
Yes, Mr. President, that's correct.
Great. So, colleagues, what I'll do is I'll make the motion that we continue this item to March 25th at our next meeting. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Sure. Motion to continue this item to March 25th, made by Supervisor Canepa, seconded by Supervisor Gaucher. Roll call vote, Supervisor Spear. Supervisor Corzo.
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller.
Yes.
Supervisor Gaucher.
Yes.
President Canepa.
Aye.
Motion passes to continue.
Great. That concludes our meeting.
Thank you.
Through the County Attorney, will you be reporting out?
There'll be nothing to report out.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Great. The time is now 11:37 a.m. and the board is adjourning to closed session.